This weekend, we have UFC Prague. UFC Prague. Early in the morning, I think. I think it starts
2 p.m. Eastern time is the.
I am down for that. Give me that. James, what are you looking for out of this show? Not exactly the most hyped card in the world.
Yeah, and not really like it's a good fight in the main event, but it's not like one of those ones that really like captivates your attention. There's some interesting matchups on here, but mainly, with the European cards, you tend to just get a showcase of, some of the up and coming talent here. Just looking sort of at the bottom of the card, Rustam Khabilov and Diego Ferreira should be an interesting matchup. Khabilov is a guy that's really tough to beat, and Ferreira is a guy that has been on a roll, 14-2 record, had a bit of a layoff there, but always finished his fights. Chris Fishgold, looking to bounce back after his loss to Calvin Kattar's interesting. But yeah, there's a lot of John Dodson and Peter Yan's interesting. I'm actually really surprised Dodson took this fight because that's not an easy outing for Dodson. Yan is sort of the future, and I think that's why they put this fight together. But yeah, this is just, it's like one of those like a fight night card, but you'll tune in and watch it, but nothing really stands out here. Like I'm just looking at sort of some of the names. There's nothing really like, the main event is going to be good for the obviously the light heavyweight division, but other than that, not a lot going on here.
Yeah, this prelim card is very uncelebrated, I should say. Diego Ferreira plus 115, Rustam Khabilov minus 135. You have Joel Alvarez at a plus 210 taking on Ismagulov, a minus 250. Chris Fishgold, a minus 250, taking on Daniel Tamer, a plus 210. Ismail Nardiev is a plus 325 against Mikhail Prazeres, a minus 400. You have Hadzovic at a plus 120. Marco Polo Reyes at a minus 140. Carlo Pedersoli Jr., a minus 125. Dwight Grant, a plus 105. Jillian Robertson, who we spoke to here on Fightful, a minus 145. Veronica Macedo, a plus 125. So at least on this prelim show, there are some possible flyers that maybe I'd put 5 on. But Joe, anything that really stands out to you, like, man, there's value on them, or I'm really looking forward to this fight or this person perform?
There's nothing that I could see. I mean, Praceres at minus 400 is kind of ridiculous. Not kind of ridiculous. It just seems so high, but everything is pretty tight and pretty close here. So the only thing that I see value on is what we're going to get to in a moment, but it's not even value. So yeah, I got nothing on this. No 5s on this undercard.
Anybody that you're looking forward to watching perform? I know that you spoke to Jillian Robertson ahead of this show, James.
Yeah, and what's interesting about this fight with her is that, Dean Thomas is normally in her corner for her fights, and, she's used to having him around, and that's actually why she went to Rufus Sport, because Dean is over there with Tyron Woodley, who's getting ready for his fight, but Dean won't be at this fight because it's too much for him to, fly back and forth because he's got to be there for Woodley the week after. So I don't know if that's going to impact her. She's coming off a loss. Really needs to bounce back here. So that's sort of interesting to me to see how that matchup goes, taking on Macedo, who's 5-2-1. So you never know what could happen there. But I think that's probably one of the ones I'm a little bit more intrigued with. But the rest of them, that and probably the Khabilov and Ferreira fight. But yeah, this is just I don't know, just not a very strong card, to be honest.
Well, that's a good fight, though. I mean, Khabilov, I spent time with Khabilov and Nurmagomedov and those guys when we were in Bahrain. Just a fantastic fighter. He just hasn't been able to take it to that next level. But against Ferreira, that's going to be a good scrap. I like that one.
The main card has at least one person per fight that I'm very interested in seeing, at the very least. You have Ankalaev, who had a great performance last time out. He's a minus 230 over De Abreu, a plus 190. That line, James, how do you see that? It's shifting a little bit, but Ankalaev got beat his first time out, but had a great performance last time.
Yeah, I'm pretty. The fact that it's at 205, I think, is interesting because that's a division that sort of needs to build up, sort of the lower half. So yeah, big implications for both these guys. We just saw Anthony Smith, the run that he's gone on to get a title shot, just shows you how wide open this division is. So big fight here. Ankalaev, I think, is probably going to take this one home, but we'll see what happens. We've seen closer fights here, but I just think his skill set overall is superior to Ferreras. I don't know how you say that, but I think he'll get it done here. I think this is a fight to sort of showcase him. That's why it's the first fight on the main card.
Yeah, Klidson has like 6 names. It's Klidson, Ferris, De Abreu. A little bit under the radar, but Ferris does have a big win over one Johnny Walker. So that says a lot, and beat I think he's on a 6-fight winning streak. This will probably be one of my I got 5 on it. But you go 1 fight up. Peter Yan at minus 265. John Dodson at plus 225. I think that's one you got 5 on. I'll make my official picks later. But this is a big fight in the career of both, Joe.
I got 5 on Dodson in a heartbeat in this one. Not to take anything away from Peter, but what? Yeah, I'll take. I mean, Dodson. We just know he just can't pull that trigger. He just hasn't been able to pull that trigger in so many of his 7 of his last 8 fights, in my opinion.
Wait till you see the size difference in this one, though.
I know. It'll be interesting to see, but speed kills, and if John can use his speed, this is it. This is where you put your 5 on it. So interesting to see, because if he doesn't, I mean, you take a look at the rankings right now. Peter Yan's at 14, and Dodson's at 9. Peter Yan could be entering the top 10 potentially with a victory. So
Peter Yan's going to be the biggest looking 5'7.5" ever, because John Dodson is a generous 5'2". Peter Yan has won 3 straight fights in the UFC, and of course he had that run as an ACB bantamweight. James Dodson, inconsistent at best. I mean, inconsistency is really the tale of his career since the flyweight run that led to him getting beat by Demetrius Johnson. He's beaten the Manny Gamburians, Eddie Winelands, and Pedro Munoz's of the world. At least the latter of those, a solid victory. But Jimmy Rivera, Marlon Moraes, John Lineker, Demetrius Johnson, we run into this a lot. You get to the elite level, then he has trouble. It's hard to say Peter Yan at that elite level, but it's certainly something we could be talking about in a few years where we look at that and his name isn't that unreasonable to put next to Moraes or Jimmy Rivera or Lineker.
Huge fight here for both guys. Dodson, it's all about being relevant. For Yan, it's about, taking that veteran out and really propelling up the division here. I like Peter Yan here. I think he gets it done. I know that the experience isn't on his side, and the quality of opponents haven't been great for Yan in the UFC per se. But I think he gets it done. But again, if you're looking for value in this fight, for sure it's on Dodson. I mean, he's still dangerous. He still has knockout power. He's still very fast, like Joe referenced. I think that he's a guy that you can't just immediately write off in a matchup like this. That's what I said. Like when this matchup was announced, I was surprised Dodson took it, because there's not a lot of upside for him. I mean, sure, if he gets the win, then he's sort of back where he was. But I think Jan's not like a household name. So I think if he loses this it might be the end of John Dodson in the UFC. We'll see.
Yeah, he is a guy who would get some offers. We have Liz Carmouche taking on Lucy Pudilova. This is a good fight. 24-year-old Pudilova has went 2-2 in the UFC. Liz Carmouche, I think, is a win or 2 away from a possible title shot. She is a person who I think always can be there. She will always have the benefit of that visual of her on Ronda Rousey's back, cranking away at her face to fall back on. And that's very good. And I am a big fan of watching Liz Carmouche fight, just because it's a lot of fun usually. She is a minus 135. Pudilova is a plus 115. I think this line is right where it's at. I would maybe have Carmouche as a little more of a favorite, James, but how do you see this one going?
Completely agree. One thing that Carmouche did, because I spoke to her ahead of this fight, is that she's not working for this camp. So she's actually focusing all of her energy on training, which is great. One of the things she's added in for strength and conditioning is underwater training. So just imagine, BJ Penn back in the day with the rock running through the water. But she's doing a lot of that. So I expect her cardio to be really good in this fight. And I just think, again, kind of like the last fight, I think experience, will play a factor here. Carmouche has fought the who's who. Pudilova hasn't. I think we're going to see a great performance. And the other thing we got to mention too, guys, look at her teammates. Pearl Gonzalez just fought. She's got Alima Lay McFarland defending her title coming up here soon. She's in a camp right now where all the women are getting ready. I think that's great for her. Everyone's sort of, guns a-blazing at the same time at San Diego Combat Academy. So I'm expecting Carmouche to win and potentially make a statement here. I think she's someone, even though she's 35, we can't count her out of the flyweight title picture, because again, she has a lot of experience, and I think she's going to look great in this fight.
You talk about that experience. She's fought the best at 115, 125, 135, 145. She's fought Marloes Kunin, Valentina Shevchenko, Sarah Kaufman, Ronda Rousey, Jessica Andrade, Alexis Davis twice, Miesha Tate. That's unbelievable. And Joe, we talked about the experience, but the thing with Liz Carmouche is she hasn't fought more than once a year since 2013. So since that year that she had the Ronda Rousey fight, she's never fought more than once in a calendar year. Will that play a role? Well, I mean, will it affect anything? I think personally, her going at this full time is the right thing to do. She has to at this point. When else?
Yeah, so there's an interesting dynamic when you think about that. She is 35 years old, okay, but she doesn't have the MMA mileage of a 35-year-old mixed martial artist. So you would think you look at this fight here and all the different dynamics and intangibles that you use to break down a fight. Her opponent's 24, so the youth factor is going to be there, but you use the youth factor when it's in a situation where a fighter who's older has had so much more mileage on their body. That's not the case. So I'm going to be very interested to see if Lucy can use her speed and her footwork to keep Liz Carmouche at bay, because you don't want to have her too close to you because she'll launch you. She'll take you down to the ground and hurt you. So Lucy's going to have to stay at bay and just pick her shots. And they both have a penchant for going the distance. So this fight, in my opinion, could go the distance. It could end up happening on points here. So I want to see. I want to see how it's going to be and how it's going to unfold. But I think if Liz does get a hold of her, guys, could get real ugly.
We also have John Vellante in action. Anybody want to take a crack at pronouncing his opponent's name?
Michael.
Yeah, there you go. That's what I was going to say.
Alexachek.
Yeah.
That's what we're going to rock with. Alexachek is a -200. Vellante is a +170. For me, in a fight like this, it's almost pick'em odds because of Vellante, and that's the story of his career. Almost every fight is a pick'em. James, who you got in this one?
To me, it could go either way. I'm going to go Alexachek. I think in this one, even though he has the layoff, if you remember, he got it was a no contest. He was coming off of with Khalil Roundtree, and that was because he was flagged by USADA. So the layoff is concerning in this one. But Vellante is so inconsistent, like you mentioned. Even his last fight, it was a split decision win. I think could have gone either way. To me, there's not. John Vellante is the exact same fighter that we've seen for the last 3 years. There's nothing about him that really makes you think that he's going to do anything special or anything different. I know he does train a bit more with Stipe, which is encouraging. He's getting some good quality training, but I like Alexachek in this fight. I think he gets it done. Especially with this being a European card, I think he's going to really show up and get a big win here. And don't be surprised if he knocks out Vellante, because Vellante has been knocked out and he's just been too inconsistent for my liking. So there's no way I can pick him here.
Anything on this, Joe?
No, you know what? I'm over John Vellante. You know what I'm saying? I'm done with the whole when Chris Weidman was preaching him as my #1 training partner and watch out, watch out, watch out, watch out. The one good thing about John Vellante is that when he does go into a fight, it's a blue-collar fight. Bring your lunch bag or lunch box. You're fighting for 15 minutes. So we'll see what Michael can do, but I will lean towards the favorite in this fight. And Alexachek, check my check, catch a check, hopefully got 5 on it.
I think giving +170 odds on someone who has went to 4 consecutive split decisions, that's almost I got 5 on it worthy in its own. Co-main event, this is almost a pick'em. Stefan Struve against Marcos Rogerio de Lima. Struve is a +105. De Lima is a -125. Joe's is right where it should be. I mean, Stefan Struve has a habit of just giving fights away at some point. This is one of those guys up there with Uriah Hall in my estimation. He is almost the equivalent at heavyweight of all these tools, but never any real growth.
Yeah, it's strange that, it's the one knock on him has always been the whole jab thing. For a guy that tall, why can't you use your jab properly or sit on your punches and stuff like that? So it'll remain to be seen. I mean, Adam is coming off a victory when he returned to heavyweight, but it still went to the decision. Not Adam, excuse me, Marcus. So it's so tough to determine what's going to happen in this fight here. I don't think it's going to be overly exciting. Then again, it is heavyweight, guys. Like heavyweights, anything can happen. And Struve has a penchant for, you think he's going to have a boring fight or you think he's not going to be able to execute, and then boom, he knocks his opponent out. So we'll see what happens. But yeah, I don't know.
James.
Total coin flip, in my opinion. Struve's the underdog here. Should be noted, Struve, this is the last fight on his contract, so maybe some urgency here. They don't usually keep fighters around after 3 straight losses, but he got another one here. As far as I know, he didn't train at Hard Knocks for this camp in the States. I think because of the proximity of where Prague is to where he lives in Holland. I think that he decided to stay home for this one. So not getting some quality training partners, I don't think, as you would expect. I'll probably go to Lima in this one just because I think Struve at this point is just so unpredictable, but wouldn't it be nice to see him snap a 3-fight win streak and get a victory here, relatively close to home and get the job done because, he needs it. If he goes into free agency off 4 straight losses, I don't imagine there's going to be that many calls to him after the fight.
If I am correct, I believe that Stefan Struve, believe it or not, a year and a half younger than Francis Ngannou. It's unbelievable to think, because he's been around in the UFC for a decade now. It'll be literally a decade this weekend that he fought and got beat by Junior Dos Santos, and that progression just never came. Jan Blachowicz against Thiago Santos, this is a good fight. I mean, it's not a, hey, everybody tune in, we're going to watch the fight, but it is a good main event for what they're doing. Jan Blachowicz, they're getting a little bit of mileage out of him, and I appreciate that. He's won 4 in a row, and to be honest with you, I thought he was getting cut after he lost to Patrick Cummins. I thought that was happening, because when you looked at his fights, he had lost 4 or 5, all of them decisions. That's not usually something the UFC likes to make a habit of, hanging around on people like that, but we knew that he had a lot of potential because he was beating guys who, at the very least, were in the UFC. They, obviously, at the end of their run, Houston Alexander, Sokoudjou, Gorian Relic in KSW. But since then, he's reeled off 4 straight wins, including 2 big ones, Manoa and Krylov. Although, is a win over Krylov ever really that big? He is taking on a Thiago Santos who, quite frankly, beat the challenger for next weekend's UFC light heavyweight title fight. Beat Eric Anders at light heavyweight. I consider that a real light heavyweight win, because Eric Anders is just that big. Beat Jimmy Manoa. He's won 7 of his last 8 fights. He's only lost to David Branch, who, quite frankly, can compete as a light heavyweight. So I don't think that's like a big concern. But he is a -120. Blachowicz is a +100. Joe, who you got in this one?
Oh, dude, you know that Thiago Santos is one of my favorite fighters in the UFC to watch every single time. This guy is just a symphony of destruction. This guy's just violent, absolute violent. I mean, we're talking Justin Gaethje versus Eddie Alvarez type of violence here. This guy doesn't care. He will go until he's got his last breath in his lungs. There's no chance I'm going to go against Thiago Santos. I mean, he's one of my favorites in the UFC right now, strictly from a violent perspective. So I do enjoy watching his fights. I wish I could call one of his fights. But yeah, Thiago Santos for sure.
Interesting to note that Jan Blachowicz has never been stopped in the middle of a round by strikes. I think he got tapped out once, maybe 12 years ago. But other than that, I think Sokoudjou, I think he had to quit on the stool or throw in the towel, whatever that may be. It's hard to imagine Santos winning any other way, at least in this fight. But James, what are your thoughts on this one?
I'm going with the upset here. I'm going Blachowicz. I think he gets it done by decision. I think he makes this dirty. I think he takes this. He's able to, neutralize Santos' stand-up and really just make this his fight. We saw that with Jimmy Manoa. This is a guy that you can't underestimate. I mean, these guys are so identical. I mean, they're both 35. They both have, pretty notable wins, under their belt. I guess Santos finished Jimmy Manoa, whereas Blachowicz took him to a decision, but still a dominating win nonetheless. I think what it comes down to for me is just that Blachowicz has been in the weight class longer. He's used to fighting bigger guys. I know Santos at one point fought at, I think, at welterweight. And he's looked good since moving up to 205. But I think the experience at light heavyweight will pay off for Blachowicz, and I expect him to pull off the upset here. This is a coin flip. I mean, if Santos goes out there and knocks him out, it would not surprise me either. But you just look at the durability of Blachowicz and what he's been able to do in the UFC so far, and just be a little bit of a surprise, to be honest. I think he takes home a really dirty decision in this fight, and people are going to be upset with how uneventful this fight is.